Good morning, friends. So continuing with the aptitude videos, as per your demand, many of you were saying that let's have a video on syllogism. So let's understand the tricks and the shortcuts to attempt questions of syllogism. What exactly do I mean by syllogism? So what kind of questions are there? Let's understand what kind of questions do we have. When I say all tables are doors, all doors are chairs. So when you have two or more than two such statements where you're using all, some, no, or some not, so these kind of questions come under the category of syllogism. I need to infer out something out of these two statements. And the first two statements are the premise, they are the given statements, they are the facts, right? Based upon that, based upon these statements, now these are the statements, right, which will be given to you in the exam. Based upon these statements, we have the following conclusions. So either of the conclusions might be true or any one of them might be true, so that you need to check out, right? So these are the two statements, and the first conclusion is all chairs are tables. Based upon these two statements, can I conclude that all chairs are tables? Second conclusion, some chairs are tables. That you need to verify that first conclusion can be drawn from these two, or the second can be drawn, or let's say both can be drawn. So let's say that's the question, right? Now the question arises, how do I attempt such questions? There are many ways to attempt such questions. The first, the traditional method is using Venn diagrams. I say that all tables are chairs, so I make a Venn diagram where I have all tables within the doors, and then all doors are chairs, so doors within the chairs, and then you infer. And there can be, second category of the Venn diagrams where you have a single circle representing tables, doors, and chairs. So that becomes too complex. I have hardly two statements here. If the number of statements is more than that, that becomes too lengthy to solve the question using that method. So what can be the other best way? There are many shortcuts to attempt such questions. Now write down few important points first of all. Before I tell you the actual shortcut for these particular questions, you should remember some important facts, some important points about syllogism before you answer the question. See, can I say this statement is a positive statement? All tables are chairs, there is no used, right? So whenever we have two positive statements, the conclusion will always be positive. Remember that. Whenever have a combination, one positive followed by another negative, or one negative followed by the positive, the conclusion will always be negative. Yes, the conclusion will always be negative. And there can be a third case, when I have both the statements negative, no conclusion can be drawn. Before you start the chapter, you should know these 3 points, right? These 3 points are quite necessary before you start attempting any question, right? Now I'll tell you some tricks, some shortcuts to attempt such questions. Whenever you have a statement which starts with all, mark the first word, give them a value of 100, and give the second word a value of 50. Some give the first word a value of 50, even the second word a value of 50. You need to just devote some time mugging up all these tricks, and once you mug up all these tricks, it will hardly take a minute to attempt 10 questions. No, I'm not saying take a minute to attempt one question. No, some not. So primarily in the entire plethora of questions you will have these 4 kind of statements with you. Whenever a statement starts with all 100 50, some 50 50, no 100 100, and some not 50 100. Right? The common word. Now if you look at the previous example, all tables are doors, all doors are chairs. This is the common word. The common word is doors here. Yeah? So the point is, the common word should, it must have, right? The common word should have a value of at least one value. It can have 2 values also. Should have at least one value as 100. So you can say should have at least one value as 100. That's necessary. Without that you cannot attempt the question. So no conclusion. Right? Whatever the statements are given, assume the statements as the values which you have assigned as income. In your mind, you just need to visualize this statement as income, and whatever the conclusion drawn by the author, take that as expenditure. Some tricks I'm telling you. Yeah. So statement as income and the conclusion as expenditure. Which is higher? Ideally, which should be higher? Income. So can I say my expenditure should always be less than income? It can be equal to that as well, right? So simple terms, that whatever value you have assigned, conclusion should always be less than the statement. That's the most important point. Otherwise you cannot draw a conclusion. Right? The conclusion should always be less than or equal to the statement. The value in the conclusion should be less than or equal to the statement. Is that okay? Then I can draw a conclusion. So there is no need to draw a Venn diagram. Using these tricks I can answer all the questions. And there are some difficult questions also. The possible cases, the either or cases, which we'll discuss in the later half. Let's attempt this particular question. Yeah. So all tables are doors. So I'm coming back to this. All tables. What is the value? What value should I assign to tables? 100. Perfect. What value should I assign to doors? 50. Doors here is 50, and the chairs should be, doors here should be 100, and the chairs should be 50. Remember I said whenever you have a statement starting with all, the first word should have a value of 100 and the second word should have a value of 50. So 150, 150. What is the common word, bache? Doors. Does the word doors have at least one value as 100? Yes. So the common word fulfills that criteria. So that's okay. Now let's go to the options. So it starts with 100 all, because it starts with all, so 150, and the second starts with some. So when it starts with some, so the value should be 50 and 50. Remember when I said the statement starts with some, it should be 50 and 50. Yeah. Now let's cross verify the first statement. All chairs are tables. All chairs are tables. Hanji, does it verify all chairs are tables? Chairs has a value of 50. Here the chairs has a value of 100, and this is my expenditure. Remember bache, this is my expenditure and this is my income. My income is 50 rupees. So how can the expenditure be 100? So conclusion has to be less than the statement. So the first is false. Second, some chairs are tables. Chairs, what is the value for chairs? 50. Yes, perfect. What is the value for tables here? 50. And the income is 100. Good enough. My expenditure is less than that. So my expenditure has to be less than or equal to the income. So the second, both the words verify the values. So that is true. Right. So which answer is true? Some chairs are tables. Is that clear to everyone? So you can have multiple examples using the same trick. I think I made sense. But remember, end of the day, remember this. All 150, some 50-50, no 100-100, and some not 50-100. In the next video I'll talk about some no and some not, but the trick remains the same, right? Thank you. Thanks a lot.